let's start with a little video. I want to show a little video clip.
More steps towards the one world religion have just taken place on September 14th and 15th, 2022, with Catholicism and Islam pretty much coming together and say, yeah, we worship the same God and we're brothers and sisters, just different paths to a different God. This is all falling under the umbrella of the uniting of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, of course, but not the real Christianity. It's Catholicism that's being united under this one world religion. The big event that took place on September 14th and 15th was at the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, and it concluded on last Thursday. But before I get into that, I'll briefly just touch on and remind people of the Abrahamic family house being built in Abu Dhabi, where it's a religious center for Catholics, Muslims, and Jews to all come together and worship all through the Abrahamic religions there at this one thing.
Unity, peace. These are all noble attributes, goals that, if anyone were to put them forth, that's what we would say. That's how we would describe them. However, when it comes to religion, I don't know. Is it a good thing? You think that would be a good thing for believers to be a part of what seems to be the development of one world religion?
Yeah, it's always a good thing as long as it's my religion, what I like, my preference. That's great.
Yes, that is the right answer. Everyone will give that answer. That's the right answer when everyone gives that answer. Terrence, what you think?
I think definitely not. I mean, just with the clip that you just showed us right there with the what was it called, the Abrahamic
faith.
But to see Catholicism, what was that, Judaism and Islam, which I know much about, all working cohesively together, it begs to question from a theological perspective, for me at least, where is Christ at in the midst of all of this?
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, it's not to say that Christ could not orchestrate something like this to bring everyone together. But when I say that from the position of, in Islam, it is adamantly taught that God has no son. That you will hear over and over again, particularly when referencing Christians or just non-believers of Islam as infidels. That is the key point and key phrase that is used, that God has no son, right? That there is only Allah and that Muhammad is his messenger. Over and over, this is repeated. So, the reason that I'm stressing that so hard is because I'm trying to see where there's room for them to align themselves. And so for me, without saying too much, because I know, we want to cover a lot of bases here, but it seems to be something supernatural at work, in my opinion.
So okay, so if I understand you correctly, you're saying that it doesn't even make sense for Islam to have a representative here at this 7th Congress because doctrinally they are opposed to any unity with
Correct.
any other
Correct.
religion.
They should have no seat at that table because it's Islam or death. That's what we are taught. It's Islam or death.
Same with the Jews. Same with the Jews in terms of the uniqueness of their religion, their message, They're still waiting for the Messiah. So why would they be praying to the Jesus of the Christians?
Mm.
You know what?
How they can,
Wow. You finish.
not to mention that they are chosen. Um, and there's some also in the belief of the gap theory of back and putting raising the Jewish real Jerusalem, placing them in a position of prosperity and prominence. Uh, this is totally different than what Christians believe and Muslims. So I agree with what Terrence is saying. It's not just them. Buddha, Hindu, all the religions. They're separate religions for a reason. Systems are so one another that they cannot. And you're talking about for thousands of years. Their belief system causes them to be separate. But there's a movement. Oh, yes. I see that bumper sticker on the car. You have the Star of David, and then you have the Muslim symbol and the Christian symbol, trying to bring everyone together. And it's a movement that's moving rapidly, and it's happening around the world even now.
So, you make a good point, Pastor Trey, because to say that Jews to be a part of the Jewish nation or Jewish religion, that they don't accept Jesus either, and um, if a part of this development is to have some sort of unity, let's just postulate for the moment that it's unity in how you pray. How do you reconcile that as a Jew? You can't be a part of it any more than Islam. Anybody who's Muslim can be a part of it. If I think about some of the other religions as well, Hinduism. Hinduism has many gods, and they have protocol that they follow as well. I'm just not sure how you can blend the two. The only one that I could see having some sort of compatibility is Buddhism. But that's another story. We don't have to go into that. But to be Buddhist, you really can. There's a lot more that's within you, and so what you do outwardly is of lesser concern in terms of how you show your reverence to God. But it's more about what's on the inside. But that's the only one I could see where there's compatibility, inherent compatibility. But for the others, it just seems inherently that you can't have it.
And did you notice the video also where he said he made a distinction between the Roman Catholic Church and what he called the real Christian belief systems? And there is a big difference, because I traveled recently with a busload of Catholics, and they rehearsed their prayers in unison, and they were praying to Mother Mary, full of grace, save us now. These are prayers that they pray. And Protestants, who are all Christian denominations outside of the Roman Catholic Church, who would be referred to as Protestants, we don't believe that you can pray to Mother Mary. So your example of prayer alone shows a great divide and the difference in just in how we communicate and what prayer means to us and the words that we say.
Great point. I actually overlooked what the narrator was saying, and I do want to give credit to Sling and Stone, who's the individual who put together this video that we are borrowing and showing you today. But that does raise the issue. He's obviously taking a position. He's saying, look, he's gone so far as to say that they're not even real Christianity, and he states his reasons for that. But the point that he makes is very clear. and that is that there is no unity amongst Christianity. That's why we have so many different denominations. And that actually brings me to another question, like, how does the world, how do you guys think? I think I know the answer, how you're going to answer this question, but how does the world perceive Christianity? Whose brand of Christianity does the world believe is at play? And of course, it's based on what we see, what we hear, what we read in media, whether it's print, whether it's in music, or whether it's in movies and television. Whose brand? Because Christianity is so broad. So whose brand of Christianity does the world regard?
I don't think that's the question. I think the question that folks at large that are not Christians would reasonably have is which brand of Christianity is most appealing to them. Now, having said that, if you pay attention to the Roman Catholic Church and what they've done in recent months and years in terms of apologies and payouts and so on and so forth, and trying to rectify past wrongs by priesthood and so on and so forth, they're trying to do this so-called healing, if you will. And then also how they've installed even I saw a lesbian priest, married woman, whatnot, what have you, to another woman. So there's that level of acceptance. So that's the picture that's being painted. And so when you look at that overall collage right there, you see something that is seemingly more accepting of the way that the world wants to live. Some of those things are inside the law of God, and some of those things are outside the law of God. But nevertheless, the point is, which one is the most appealing? Our brand may not be the most appealing.
Right. One of the things that has always struck me is that when you watch movies, unless it's, for example, a movie that revolves around an African American family, the religion, the church that you see, is almost always Roman Catholic. Again, if it's a black movie, if you will,
AME.
then you're gonna see, it might be AME, could be Baptist, but it's gonna be a black church, all right, a black church. I'm putting quotes around that. But for most other movies, whenever you see church, Christians, the clergy, it's almost always Roman Catholic. So guess what that does for the world who watches television? Their perceptions of what Christianity is comes from the Catholic Church. So we have people who have thoughts and perceptions about Christianity, and it's predicated on Catholicism, but not necessarily the beliefs of other Christians. I dare say most other Christians.
That's true. And to add to your point, even when you look at the quote unquote black church, AME and Baptist in movies, should I say, if you're really looking, really examining it, it really does reflect the Roman Catholic Church. If you check out the robes and whatnot, what have you, that they wear, if you look at the core of the church itself and the way that it's set up. So no matter who you're watching, you're still gonna pick up these Eurocentric Roman Catholic cues, if you will, in terms of what church is supposed to look like.
Well, you have to recognize that all the Christian churches that are Protestant, they protested and came out of that mother church. Right. So the Roman Catholic Church boasts of the fact that it's been around the longest. They have the most members in their books. Doesn't matter if they only show up twice a year for Easter and Christmas. And look, we're not letting none of them slip. That's why we believe in infant baptism. Not me. I'm just saying that's why they believe in infant sprinkling, baptism. We get them while they're young, and they claim them as members. They have the most around the world. They are the richest around the world. Hands down, the most schools everywhere around the world, missionaries around the world, hospitals around the world. They have the Vatican, their own government, their own money, their own military, and they function literally aloof and above all other governments in the world, but they are spiritual entity. Wherever they go around the world, shut that city down, and everyone recognizes them as a religious authority and spokesperson for God. If you notice something, anytime there's an issue, they always tell you what the Pope has to say about it. It's just a matter of time. He will make a statement. And you notice something else. Now, this is scary. Do you notice something else? It seems like all the other denominations are either late in making a statement or they're silent. But the Pope will make a statement on behalf of the Roman Catholic Church. Once he makes a statement, everyone else shifts and does their thing. So that's the reason why they are so popular today.
Let's see, Pastor Trey, you're breaking up just a little bit. I think we caught most of that right there. I'm going to play a little bit more of this clip. So let's listen in for a little bit more.
So let me read a little bit from this article about it. The world religions leaders today adopted the human fraternity document signed by His Eminence, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar and chairman of the Muslim Council of Elders, Dr. Ahmed Al-Taib, and His Holiness Pope Francis, their name, not mine, of the Catholic Church in Abu Dhabi in 2019. And this came during the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, which concluded on Thursday.
All right, Terry, I'm going to let you jump in on that one first.
I mean,
so 2019.
I guess the first thing that I would say in reference to that is let's also keep in mind that while he's sitting here with all these world leaders in terms of theology, the Pope, no matter who sits there, whether it's Francis or John Paul, who sat there before him, so on and so forth, the papacy is the only religious institution that has access to every head of state around the world, presidents, prime ministers around the world. And I'm not talking has to talk to the Secretary of State or whatnot. No, I'm talking direct line to these world leaders. That should be frightening. That should also be sobering. So for me, it's no surprise that he's able to gather these individuals to come and meet with him. I can't help but notice that there was a lack of diversity at this meeting as well. I didn't see many, if any, at all, folks that look like one of us. But it's very telling. It's very telling. And so when things like this are released and shown to us, I think folks need to prepare for what comes next. And I'll pass the baton.
So that brings me to this question. So what, who should choose? Now I'm going to speak from the perspective of someone who's, let's just say, not, who's indifferent. Who should be the head of something like this? How would you go about qualifying somebody for this? I want you to get your answer. There's a point to me asking this question, but who would qualify to be the head of a one world religion?
Okay. So it sounds like that should be something that should have come to a vote from the folks that were present. Granted, those folks don't govern my theology, but in terms of what they're doing, I would imagine that to some degree, that would be a democratic process, if you will, where it would come to a vote. I think it's only fair in the sense that, well, prior to coming to the table, each individual has their own theological position. Everyone has their own thing. You have Muslims there, you have Catholics there, and you have Jews there. So there are going to be slight differences. So for just one person to say, "Hey, I put this thing together, so it's going to be me," I don't know. I imagine you might have some pushback.
Okay, so that's one take right there. The individuals that are represented there would be called to a vote. We'll come back to that, Pastor Trey. I mean, what do you say to this question? I know this might be a little bit challenging for you to answer because it's not something that you would agree with. I mean, but as you think about it, this is a question that would be put to the minds of everyone else who doesn't have your background, your understanding, your knowledge of things. See, because if it comes down to a vote, this is the question that needs to be answered. Who's going to decide who gets into this position?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think someone who is unchurched, or they don't consider themselves a believer or religious necessarily, they probably would like to have whoever that religious leader is. They want to have someone who will not try to proselytize or make converts, or they don't want someone who's going to be too morally astute and put restrictions or guilt trips on other people based off of their beliefs. So they probably want someone who's going to be as neutral as possible and open and receiving of all other types of beliefs. That's the kind of person I think that they would prefer to be the leader of whatever one religion that there is. As long as that religious leader can incorporate and accept everybody else's beliefs, they really don't care who it is, because they don't have a preference one way or another, because they're non-religious. So no matter to them what the name is, it matters more, are they going to push their beliefs off on us or not?
I like what Ladrea just said. She said no one is qualified, but only someone God ordained. Okay, well, I guess I'm giving up my position right there, since I just stated that I like her position, her remark, her response. So, this whole thing about deciding who gets to be at the head, is that a decision that really should be called to a vote? We're talking about conscience now when we talk about religion or one's belief in God. And to suggest even remotely that such a decision could be called to a vote by individuals that are largely not even made up of persons who believe like you, does that even make sense? Right. But is that where we're going? But is that the direction we're going in?
Yeah, and because it's kind of how even popes are chosen. You have cardinals and whatnot, what have you, folks deciding in the background who this individual is going to be. One would like to believe that it's actually God telling them, "Oh, go pick Stan. That's my man." But that's really not the case. And not to pivot away from the question at hand, but I feel like it's kind of married to it, because when you start talking about this one world religion situation, for an unchurched person or just a non-believing person, once this comes to fruition and this person is voted in, or however they end up in their position, is the world at large still allowed to not believe? Or is this something that's forced upon you? Will you be persecuted for it? You know what I mean? That's a real question right there.
Okay.
Well, can I say this also? I don't think the world is that threatened by what the church does or doesn't do, because the church all coming together is something that the world would just say, well, oh, that's what them church folk, them religious folk, lead them over there and let them do their thing. But I do see that there's a move to try to unite the two. the church and state. There's something now that is starting to connect the dots between what the church is doing and what the government is doing. And I think now that's something that's really going to concern people in the world and be like, wait a minute, that's going to impact how we live.
I kind of have to respectfully disagree with that. And the reason why is because I've watched this video in its totality. And when you do that, there's some things that come out like the peace treaty between what I believe was Israel, Bahrain, and another country as well. So when you say that, you have to stop and consider that there are all these world powers that are seated at these tables. That cannot help but to affect both believer and non-believer. And secondly, I would also say you and I know it is the church, but as a Muslim, it's not the church. As a Jew, it's not the church. You see what I'm saying? As a Buddhist, it's not the church. And so now it takes on a totally different face. So we're not looking at it through the same lens. And that immediately down the road, can become problematic. I think that then theology, in a sense, supersedes politics and becomes politics. And so that in itself, we know is going to be a failed marriage. And so it'll just have a trickle down effect. And so both believer and non-believer will suffer under the umbrella of that.
Yeah, that's true. I agree.
Let's listen to a little bit more.
Some highlights from the World Congress of Religions. We note that pluralism in terms of differences in skin color, gender, race, language, and culture are expressions of the wisdom of God in creation. Religious diversity is permitted by God, and therefore any coercion to a particular religion and religious doctrine is unacceptable. So, as you can tell, they're not saying here at these events that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, the Messiah, the only way to heaven, because that would contradict Islam and Judaism. So it's uniting. Everybody's giving up the truth here. They're all just coming together to get along, to give up the truth, which is that salvation is found through Jesus Christ alone.
All right. Now we're getting to, now things are becoming more complicated, because this gentleman is introducing the notion that for individuals who believe like him, and based on what I've heard, I share in his beliefs, that this doesn't look like something that's going to bode well for us. We have, as a part of our belief set, a commission to do some things. And if in order to be a part of this one world religion, we've got to give up our ability to accomplish those things, then is that a good thing? Let me let you guys jump in.
No, it's not. Definitely when you have to compromise Jesus out the picture. I mean, he is the reason there is a Christianity, and he is the creator, and all of what Christianity is about is surrounding him. But I want to also put something out there in, there is something called Christian nationalism that is really beginning to take over. And that is that you are a nationalist and a Christian at the same time, but you feel that your Christian values should be legislated and should be promoted and pushed through the laws of the land. And I remember even January 6th, they had people with Bibles. They were having prayer vigils. They were carrying crosses. And many Trump supporters, followers, are very strong in their faith and believing that Jesus is Lord. They believe Jesus is the only Lord, but they were right there with a gentleman with a scully cap with the skull and bones face on the front of it with a Bible. So he believed in Jesus, and attacking violently the Capitol to push their agenda. and basically saying that we want to use our government to promote and to push our biblical values. So even amongst the Christians also, you have different strains that are pushing different agendas as well. That makes this even more complicated to have a one world religion. It's gonna take a lot of compromise and coming together, which we recognize through prophecy that's going to happen for the intent and purpose of in the end trying to destroy the people of God.
I like that. I like what you just said. See, in our country, in America, for anyone who's tuning in from outside of our country, in America, we've got, as what Pastor Trey just intimated, Christian nationalist?
Christian nationalism.
Yes.
Christian nationalism, which is of sort a marriage between your religious beliefs and the way you want your country to be run. Now, it might sound good on the surface, but when you examine what's been going on in our country, where the push for laws, for legislation is 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 based on one's belief and whether or not those laws infringe upon the rights. Of course, in America, rights are a big thing. That's what our country was founded upon, having the right to do as you please, to do some things as you please, so long as you don't injure anyone else. But this seems to be, a foreshadowing of, a country where if you're not a part of the majority who sets the laws in place, and certain laws get passed that go against your belief, whether religion or otherwise, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be subject to punishment. And so for anyone who's watching outside, wouldn't you think that this would seem to be America would serve as a microcosm for the world at large if something like this one world religion were to come to fruition? What do you got?
Pastor Trey said something earlier about compromise, and in the event that what we're talking about, what we're discussing takes place, very quickly, when you're a part of the minority and not the majority, compromise will become force. Right? And so we study history, we look at history to better understand where we are and what trajectory that we're on. But within that, I would see crusades coming once again. Definitely crusades coming once again, because anything that you say against this establishment, this new world order, so to speak, of this one world religion, you're going to be deemed a heretic. That'll be heresy. It'll be punishable by law under this Christian nationalism, if you will.
Does it even make sense? Is it beneficial? Did I ask this question already? Does it benefit the non-believer? I'm trying to look from their perspective for the moment. Should they be involved in something like this? Should they actually choose a side because of how it may benefit them later? I guess I'm trying to play devil's advocate as well. Like, if you're a non-believer, I mean, do you want to promote? I mean, do you want to support the development, the formation of a one world religion? Would that actually benefit you later in life after something like that is established?
I don't think so. I think if I were a non-believer, that I would still want for diversity to be on the table, and just the ability to be a free thinker. And I think that if I were to vote on the side of this one world religion, then I would have to do that knowing, or at least as an informed decision, do that knowing that moving forward, that would no longer, in term free thinking, would no longer be a possibility for me.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm just gonna put it out there. If you're a non-believer, you probably want to choose the side of not a one world religion, because if you live in
Mm-hmm.
America and if you feel like your liberties are being infringed upon here in this country at the,
Mm-hmm.
or by rather Christian nationalists, imagine a one world religion where all countries, all governments are
Mm.
submitting to.
Mm-hmm.
That means you can't
Hmm.
even leave the country and go
Right,
anywhere
right, right.
and feel free to do what you want, which in this case would include not participating in any religious belief. You can't go anywhere. So
Mm-hmm.
you got
Look,
to vote. I'm thinking if you're a non-believer, if you're an atheist, you probably want to vote against one world religion too.
but judging by the people that were seated at that in that circle of theologians, world theologians, even if there were somewhere on the globe that you could escape to, I imagine your passport is shut down anyway.
Uh, they already work. Yeah, that digital passport is
Hmm.
already
Hmm.
at play. Let's listen to a little bit more.
Back to the article, it says, "We recognize the importance and value of the document of human fraternity for world peace and living together between the Holy See and Al-Azhar al-Sharif." And then they mention two different documents that were resolved and signed into place by the UN General Assembly, as well as the Makkah Declaration adopted in Mecca in 2019. And these call for peace, dialogue, mutual understanding, and mutual respect among believers. So it's really the uniting of all these religions under the fact that we need to coexist together. And yes, of course, we need to coexist together. But the problem here is that they're starting to aim it towards we serve the same God. We worship the same God. These Abrahamic religions are just different expressions of God to different people.
Am I mistaken? Did he not mention that the UN also has a role in this?
Well, yeah. That's something that I was going to point out too. Is that UN has passed some resolution, and then there's something that was signed, some agreement that was
In Mecca.
assigned
In Mecca.
in Mecca.
Hmm. A peace agreement.
Sounds like they're much further along than
Yeah, we're always late to the party.
I have to admit too. I mean, I've been aware, and I guess I'm going to now really share my full position on all of this. But I've been aware that these things were going to happen, or I've been told that these things were going to happen, much like you guys were, and we've been kind of waiting on things to unfold and happen. But I haven't been getting regular updates, and so now that I've gotten this update effective just a few days ago this week, I realize that, man, I've been behind.
That comment about we're learning in society. So she says we're learning in society to accept
Mm-hmm.
everything so that we're not an outcast. And so the question then becomes who wants to be an outcast, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for me, that's also tied into uh, um, our biblical texts that refer to being able to buy and sell and things of that nature. And so then if you're not submitting to this beast, not to pivot and go in a different direction, I really feel they're all tied together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, then you're going to be an outcast, right? And so the question then becomes really, where do you stand? And what are you willing to give up to stand firm in your position? A lot of people talk a good game, you know what I mean? And we all like to say everybody go to church isn't going to heaven, but when the rubber really meets the road, like really, where do you stand?
Hmm. So, in summation, wow, I'm thinking about this. This is really, really wild. When I got this video this week, I was thinking to myself, man, I've been behind. I didn't realize this was going on. We're
Mm-hmm.
much closer to the fulfillment of this prophecy than I realized. I mean, I
Mm,
felt like, events taking place on Earth are indicative of fulfillment of prophecy
hmm.
and the end of time
Mm-hmm.
finally making his return, but I had lost sight of some of these fine points. One world religion. But this video right here brought me up to speed, and I don't remember hearing this this televised. I don't know. Did you guys catch any
Not at all.
Any news breaks? CNN?
Not at all.
Fox, MSNBC, any of the major outlets? Al Jazeera even? Come on.
Now remember also the Bible says, and I don't have the reference in front of me, but when they all speak peace, that's when sudden destruction will come. So the devil works in a way to cause people to come together in a peaceful manner.
See.
But once they come together in a peaceful manner, you think they're just going to stay like that? No. Now it's time to do something. It's trying to implement something. It's time to enact something. And that's where it becomes dangerous.
Wow. Now let me ask you this. I want to come back to this earlier question. If you had to guess, who would get voted in, I mean, you know, everybody's interested in America here about who gets voted in as president. There's always discussion about the potential candidates, and everyone chooses sides and they make their argument for who will be the better candidate. You know, if you had to think about who would be the likely candidate or the likely winner for who would head this one world religion, where would you place your bets? It's not about whether or not you agree with them, but if you had to place your bets, who do you think will get that top spot?
Me personally, I think strategy comes into play, and I firmly believe that the papacy would allow the Muslim brethren to sit in that seat and think they were in control when they really were not.
Wow.
The Pope already sees himself as the religious leader of all spiritual truth.
I agree with that, but it's chess, not checkers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like that. I wasn't expecting that one. I thought you were gonna go what I would consider to be the obvious. I mean, I think that if more people had to, if it were put to a vote, that more people would vote for the Pope to head such a position as the world government. But I hear what you're saying, and what you seem to be suggesting is the Pope might recuse himself. He might say, you know what, nah, I'm just going to drop out of this one, and let somebody else.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it's a matter of him dropping out of it, but you're going to get some. Trust me, in Islamic circles, that is going to be a problem. Say what you will. I think dollar for dollar, Islam is wealthier.
Okay.
And then it's already it's already been proven who's willing to die. And they're gonna march to the last soldier. So I think that the game is chess, not checkers, and that this brother is brilliant enough. And yes, I said that, brilliant enough to know that he'd find less resistance if he allowed this man to sit in the seat thinking he was controlling everything, when in fact this man controls all the rest of the pawns that are on the table.
Hey, that's some chess, like some that's some old school saying.
Yeah. But don't sleep on who's really in charge and behind all error.
Well, yeah, no. I think that's what he was saying. That definitely.
Yeah.
Who's right.
Right. No, my whole point is the devil's going to bring all of his cohorts, and I don't care what they call themselves.
Yeah,
he's going to bring them all together. These three have one mind.
Mm-hmm.
This is Revelation. They all come together with spirits like frogs. They're going to speak the same thing and all come together, have one mind, and give their power to the beast.
But they're not doing it in
I believe
peace.
that's Revelation 17.
They're not doing it in
that's
peace.
Already been. It's already been prophesied.
Yeah.
Because look at Rome. Rome they accepted everybody's religions, remember?
Well, originally they sure did.
All
Right?
roads lead to Rome, and they let everybody can worship whatever they want to worship, as long as when they say light a candle and worship and do this, as long as you do that, you can go back and believe whatever you want to believe. They didn't care.
Wow.
But then at the end, although they had all different beliefs, at the end, they all came on one accord to kill Christ. And no group anywhere dissented or said that they shouldn't do it.
When the vote really mattered, they got what they wanted. You know, I got to tell you guys, I've been enlightened and inspired today. If you're tuning in, and you know, we'd love to hear what you think on this as well. And the comments have been coming in. But you know, so it's all out there. You know, we are a part of a conglomerate that believes that, you know, as the Bible says, that there will come a time where we'll have to make certain decisions, and that for the world to come to a point where you have to make a decision, it means that there's going to be this forming, this unification of sort religiously by the world. And we see the signs taking place. Well, they've been taking place, and now that we've just intimated and showed you through video today that just a few weeks ago in Kazakhstan, the Pope, along with the heads of many other religious beliefs, including Islam, were present there, and they talked about this unity, about this coming together, about forming this, you know, this unification organization, if you will, which sounds like one world religion.
One world.
Yeah. And so,
and one more point.
Come on, go ahead.
One more point, real quick. And remember, Revelation says that he causes all people, small and great, and rich and poor, and free and bond, to worship, right, the beast or his image, and to receive this mark. So everyone in the whole world will eventually come to the point of worshiping something, somebody. And if they don't believe nothing but just believe in themselves, then they just worship themselves.
You know,
but everybody's gonna worship something.
But there's always a choice. It's either that or death. I firmly believe that. You know what I mean? It's always that God always leads us a way out. And so the question that becomes, what are you willing to give up? This thing is going to get so diabolical that parents are going to have to watch their children killed right before their very eyes,
because they don't want to be an outcast,
for their faith,
like Ladrea said.
For their faith. And so then the question that one has to ask themselves, do you love Jesus? Do you believe in Jesus to that degree? That's not something we're supposed to answer here on the air, whatnot, what have you. That's an individual question between them and God. But that is the harsh reality. When I say crusade, I mean exactly that. You know, I envy those folks having that type of faith, that level of faith where they're burning at the stake, but their love relationship with God is so much so that while they're burning, they're singing praises to God. That's the level of faith one is going to need should something like that, or when something like this takes place.
How many are going to
absolutely
willing and ready for that? I mean, as Ladrea intimated earlier in her comments, that people don't want to be an outcast in society. People don't want the pressure of going to jail or dying either. And so, you know,
some people value their name over Jesus. Oh no, I can't mess up that
reputation.
Good Clark reputation.
Yeah,
man.
that reputation.
Well, we're Clarks. We got to be uphold. Nah.
My pastor, when I was say that character is what you stand for and reputation is what you fall for. He was making a distinction between and reputation.
And remember this, gentlemen, everything that we say we believe will be tested.
Yes. Yes.
And everybody believes something.
Yes.
Everyone believes something. And whatever you believe in, you about to find out if it can carry you through the greatest challenge that this world has ever faced. And so that's why, you know, Jesus has this call to all believers to worship him. Fear God, give glory to him.
Man.
The hour of his judgment It's because he's the only one that can judge, because he's the only true and living God. No world, you can't have one world religion, because no man in a position of religious power has the right to judge anyone. But that's why we have to fear God and worship him. The hour of his judgment is coming. He's going to judge everybody based off of what they believe or not. Even the atheists and even pantheists and those that may say they're unbelievers, well, then that's your belief. Will it get you through? In a world where one world belief system, how will you be able to stand in a society like that?
You know, that reminds me, real quick, that reminds me of my favorite line in the movie Drumline, that this is a tree shaking elimination time. At some point, what you believe, you're right, you can be put to the test, whether you believe it or not.
I like that. And just to add to what Pastor Trey was saying, when you look at all of those folks that were at this meeting, that came together for this meeting of the minds, if you will, and make this agreement for this one world religion, the reality is this: the devil is there present, orchestrating this situation to shake his fist in the face of God and say, look, these people that you call yours love this world just as much as I do. In fact, they love it more than they love you, and I'll show you. Watch this.
What I mean.
You see what I'm saying? And so I said that to segue into our faith being tested, as Pastor Trey intimated, our faith being tested. And so are we willing to let go of what we know of as our life? Do we really believe that there is a heaven? Do we really believe that there is an earth made new? And if you say so, then it's time to show and prove. Put up or shut up. Okay, you believe that? Show me.
That time is coming so fast. Oh my God. I mean, listen, you know what? If you caught off guard, it's because you're not paying attention. Not paying attention. You know, believers who, you know, we got a lot of believers who put up a good talk game. You know, they give a lot of lip service. They got a lot to say about what they will do, but your test is coming, as Pastor Trey just mentioned. Wow, we're almost at the top of the hour. This is good.
But I'll tell you one thing more before we go is believers who were off track, who were not following the true principles of the Bible, the believers that were living in error, they have done more hurt and harm around the world than even atheists and unbelievers.
Say that. Say it. Say it. Final thoughts.
Now I'm done.
Yeah, that's it. You know, this has been a sobering conversation today that we're having on the Reclamation Project. We watched, if you're tuning in late, some clips from a video that was comprised by a gentleman, Sling and Stone, on YouTube, and he talked about a meeting that took place amongst world religions leaders, including representatives from Islam, as well as the Pope was there, and they have been, Judaism was there. Oddly enough, Judaism and Islam in the same place, talking about coming together, unifying. Something must be going on. Something is brewing. And this took place a couple of weeks ago, and they are working on the development of
one world religion.
One world religion.
Right. But remember one more thing. Jesus said in John 10, other sheep I have that are not of this fold, I must bring them. There'll be one fold, one shepherd. So God has got his roundup too.
Come on,
there's going to be one people following the Lamb of God all the way to glory.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. I appreciate that.
That's the final thought right there. Appreciate you, Pastor Trey. You know, we're gonna end on that one because you know, that's where we want to be. We want to be a part of that group right there. So we just thank you guys for tuning in today for this discussion. Hope that it was fruitful, or at least provoked thought, or compelled you to want to go back and do some more studying, so that we can all be ready when Jesus comes.